what's going on. When I drew the picture of the subdural hematoma here, going back to that, I didn't fill in the rest of the, I didn't put in the trabeculae or what happened to the pia mater and the brain. So you should realize that this is all squished because of the blood, right? This is all serious, serious change. So the trabeculae are still there, coming off the arachnoid matter. But the brain over here on this side, on the right side, is going to be seriously compressed. Okay, so that's still there. I just inadvertently didn't finish the drawing, and I had a few people ask me the questions, so I just wanted to be sure that everybody was clear about what happens. Yeah, the pia mater is still there, the brain's still there. It's just seriously compressed due to the subdural hematoma. Remember, that's a rapid clinical presentation. Okay, now, questions about that? Does that make sense? Did you have a question, Walker?
Yes. When the blood's removed, has the brain returned to its normal size?
Yeah, eventually, it takes some time. Yeah, it does take some time. So with a subdural hematoma of that size, they do a craniotomy and remove a piece of the skull, and then give it time to come back to itself again. And that's something you'll see clinically. Okay, one more thing, just real quick. Looking at this drawing again, one thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about, and I can label this here, if you remember, this is your meningeal dura, and I had a chance to label that, right? This is your meningeal dura. And we talked about the meningeal dura running all the way around, so it's around the brain itself and the spinal cord itself. Okay, going through. And the one thing that I didn't mention is the periosteal dura does not reside in the area of the spinal cord. So the periosteal dura is just tightly adhered, we talked about, to the base of the skull. Okay, so here's your periosteal dura. And this is tightly adhered to the base of the skull, so the spinal cord region just has the meningeal dura, not the periosteal dura. Okay, and again, that periosteal dura is tightly adhered to the base of the skull. That. Okay. And people were asking some questions at the end of, yes, Laura?
You said the periosteal is attached to the skull.
Yes, it's firmly attached to the base of the skull. Remember, that's the layer that's going to be more strongly attached to the sutures overall, and it does not reside in the area of the spinal cord. The spinal cord, the dura mater in the spinal cord is simply the meningeal layer. Okay, so the dura is just around the brain, inside the base of the skull. Any other questions? And one thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about, I tried to, started going in that direction, I think we just ran out of time, is the flow of the CSF. So remember, the CSF is made in the ventricles and the choroid plexus. We talked about that before. So as the CSF is made by all these choroid plexus, it fills up, this is just a big space, big empty space that the ventricles create, just an empty space, fills up with CSF. CSF actually arrives in the subarachnoid space through the foramen of Luschka bilaterally and the foramen of Magendie, the one in the back. Okay, so then this fills up this space, the subarachnoid space, and then the arachnoid villus then is responsible for draining the CSF into the superior sagittal sinus. And that's just a little bit about the flow of CSF. And you should also be aware that when they do a spinal tap is done in to the subarachnoid space below the level of L2. So this would be a spinal tap. And when they do a spinal tap, they typically will do below L2 vertebral level. We talked about the spinal cord ending at the L2 vertebral level. And does anybody know why they do a spinal tap? Why would they do a spinal tap?
Infection of the CSF.
Yeah, so they're looking for the presence of infection. So what they do is they draw off some CSF fluid and they look for the presence of an infection. Okay, the CSF fluid should not have any cells in it. It should have very low protein. Okay, so just by drawing off the CSF, they can look for the presence of some sort of infection. Questions? That make sense to everybody? Yes?
Can you go over the way it drains again?
Sure. So the CSF is produced here in the ventricles. It spills out into the subarachnoid space, and it drains here. There are these structures known as arachnoid villi. Villus is one. And they're, if you want to think about it, remember the bridging veins that help drain the venous circulation? These are specific to the subarachnoid space, and they're just known as arachnoid villus, and they help drain. And we talked a little bit, I also have a video that I want to show real quick, talk a little bit about what happens if there's a buildup of CSF in the ventricles. Does anybody remember what that problem's called? Hydrocephalus. Okay, good. Any questions about this? Just finishing up a few details, that's all. Okay, let's go ahead and